Number 10. Cosmo. Starting off our list today with the goodest of boys, Cosmo the dog. Cosmo was originally a test animal used by the Soviets during the space race between the Soviet Union and the United States in the 1960s. He was launched into orbit around Earth but drifted a bit off course and found himself in nowhere. And thanks to the exposure of cosmic rays, he developed telepathic and telekinetic powers. Although he doesn't look like much, you definitely shouldn't let your guard down around him, because with these powers he can create shields and deflect energy-based attacks, as well as project mind blast at enemies. He has straight up gone toe-to-toe with Adam Warlock, so he's pretty tough. Cosmo doesn't become an official member of the Guardians of the Galaxy until after the team disbanded after they allied with Thanos, and many of them died. Just before Star-Lord died, he left Cosmos with a task to collect the greatest heroes in the universe to form a band of Annihilators. The team Star-Lord believed was what the Guardians of the Galaxy should have been. Cosmo one by one convinced the Silver Surfer, Gladiator, Beta Ray Bill, Quasar, and Ronan the Accuser to team up and protect the universe together, as was Star-Lord's final wish. Give this good boy's story a read for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 2008's Nova Volume 4 number 8, or just feel free to skip ahead to his time as a Guardian in 2009's Guardians of the Galaxy number 12. Number 9. Moondragon. Heather Douglas, daughter of Drax the Destroyer, was found by Thanos' father, Mentor, who took her to his homeworld Titan to be raised by the Titanian Shaolin monks in their monastery. While there, Heather studied the Titan's way and disciplines to unlock her latent psychic potential and gained her mental and physical powers. However, she came under the influence of a powerful entity called the Dragon of the Moon, and she believed she had resisted it, which filled her with pride, and she took the name Moondragon as a result. Sadly, it also made Moondragon an incredibly arrogant lady who more than once has tried to quote-unquote fix things by controlling the minds of people. While she's not that bad now, Moondragon still has the ability to rub folks the wrong way. However, she still has a major telepathic power that can be quite valuable to any team. Not only that though, Heather is also a top-notch fighter who's trained with some of the best warriors in the entire galaxy. The fact that she can know how an opponent is going to act aids immensely in a fight. And then also for a time she had the ability to straight up just transform into an actual huge flying dragon, which is so sick, but she seems to have lost that ability somewhere down the road. Moondragon joined up with the team in Guardians of the Galaxy number 12 alongside Cosmo the Space Dog, but only after dying first. During the events of the Annihilation Conquest event, Moondragon is killed when Ultron shoves his arm just through her chest. In order to resurrect her, Phyla and Drax are killed by Mentor so they can travel to the realm of the dead and retrieve her. Phyla is able to save her just in time, and the three return to the land of the living. Moondragon then returns to Nowhere with Phyla and Drax, where she is accepted as a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Check out her story for yourself, starting with 1973's Iron Man number 54. Number 8. Drax. Now speaking of Drax, let's talk about him for a sec. Originally, Drax was a human named Arthur Douglas who was killed alongside his family by Thanos. His spirit was resurrected by Kronos into the body of Drax to become a being powerful enough to take out Thanos. In his new body, he was far superior to a human with the ability to fly, project energy blasts from his hands, he possesses enhanced strength, and could heal from pretty much any injury. That being said though, he has shifted many times character-wise over the years, going back and forth between smart and dumb, large and average, all until the Annihilation event, where he was portrayed as smaller but much more intelligent, and that's actually the version that we're all familiar with today. Although he's not as super strong as he once was, he still is powerful and can hold his own against multiple enemies. He still heals very quickly from injuries and has enhanced senses to the point where he was able to sniff out a Skrull imposter. He also now has the tendency to look before he leaps, and in a recent attempt at pacifism, dropped his entire standing as a warrior completely. However, Drax still has to count as a major member of the Guardians who, if pressed to it, will remind people why he's called Drax the Destroyer. Check out his entire story for yourself because it is a great one, starting with 1973's Iron Man number 55. Number 7. The Thing. Although Ben Grimm, aka The Thing, is normally associated with the Fantastic Four, he did spend some time with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and for the sweetest and just most wholesome reason: to fulfill his lifelong dream of being an astronaut. Okay, fine, you caught me, that wasn't the entire reason. Ben did decide he needed a break from Earth during a period of time where Reed and Sue were lost in time, but I swear the other reason is part of it too. Now sadly, Ben's time with the Guardians wasn't too long, as during the second superhuman civil war, their ship was accidentally destroyed in a fight, stranding the Guardians on Earth, which kind of forced them to disband for a while. Now in terms of power, the Thing is one of the strongest characters in the Marvel Universe. He's faced off with the Hulk multiple times and survived, and even once beat him with the help of his friends, and has consistently clobbered the Fantastic Four's enemies time and time again. Aside from his strength and durability though, Grimm is an expert pilot and military tactician, which really sets him apart from many other members on this team. That being said though, there are other members of the team who outclass Ben in many other ways, which is why he's not higher on this list today. Check him out for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 1961's Fantastic Four, or just skip ahead to 2015's Guardians of the Galaxy number 1 to see him in action in space. Number 6. Agent Venom. Oh yeah, you heard me right, Flash Thompson, the guy who treated Peter Parker terribly in high school, was at one time a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Now obviously he wasn't just a regular old human being sent up into space. By this time he had been bonded to the Venom symbiote for quite some time and was known as Agent Venom, so he was actually a somewhat useful and valuable member of the team. He was placed onto the team by the Avengers to work as an agent between Earth and the rest of the cosmos, and although he was amazed by the vastness of space, he actually managed to handle this role quite well. Flash was so useful on the team because the Venom symbiote has the ability to retain superpowers of anyone it's bonded with, so it already had a ridiculous amount of powers by the time Flash was bonded with it, and went into space. In addition to many of the powers possessed by Spider-Man, it also gave Flash the ability to produce toxins, camouflage, form 2 legs to replace Flash's amputated ones, create weapons out of itself, and just so much more. Through their adventures, the true origin of the symbiote was revealed, and once it was finally healed, Flash became able to tap into its full potential. Check out Flash Thompson as Agent Venom for yourself, starting with Flash's first appearance in 1962's Amazing Fantasy number 15, or skip ahead to 2014's Guardians of the Galaxy Free Comic Book Day. Number 5. Groot. Now, I'll start off this one with something that I didn't know was a thing. Groot actually has a very complicated history in Marvel Comics, as he was originally a villain who came to Earth with the intent of capturing humans to experiment on them. It wasn't until the 2006 crossover event Annihilation Conquest where he was given a redesign into the more heroic character that we all know and love today. And then it would take another 2 years before he would join the Guardians of the Galaxy in 2008's Guardians of the Galaxy number 1. Now, for the most part, Groot has been portrayed as comic relief, especially in recent years. But in a fight, trust me, he is a serious threat. Groot has a number of superhuman qualities that make him a vital member of the team. I mean, as a living tree, he can manipulate plant life and has the ability to grow his limbs to suit his needs. His ability to do this increases his mass whenever necessary, which also increases his durability in the process. This also allows for rapid healing / regrowth whenever he's damaged or honestly feels necessary to separate parts of himself to accomplish a task. It's often hinted that Groot holds himself back a lot and hasn't shown his full abilities at all. A great example of that being in Secret Wars when, as a toothpick, he merges into the World Tree to become a massive figure that stops Dr. Doom. Check out Groot's story for yourself, starting with his very first appearance as King Groot in 1960's Tales of Astonish number 13, or skip ahead to Annihilation Conquest Star-Lord number 1. Number 4. Starhawk. Stakar of the House of Ogard, aka Starhawk, was a human who was raised as an Arcturan who was cursed to re-inhabit his infant body and relive his life over and over and over again. When he did this, he would be reborn with his past knowledge intact, which led to him referring to himself as one who knows, though much of his past memories would manifest in a more precognitive sense rather than just full-blown memories. His powers aren't really fully known, but he is believed to be pretty much immortal, or at least able to live for an unknown period of time. He can also manipulate light into solid forms, fly at light speeds, survive in the vacuum of space, and possesses superhuman strength and durability, and has more knowledge than any living being should have thanks to his undying curse. It's actually been indicated that the character is much stronger than he lets on, as he took on the cosmic-powered Korvac in battle and lived to tell the tale. After his undying curse was finally lifted, this mysterious figure was responsible for forming the first Guardians team and kept the cosmos safe for honestly quite some time. Give his story a read for yourself, starting with his introduction in 1975 Defenders number 27. Number 3. Adam Warlock. With his first appearance going back as far as 1967 with the publication of Fantastic Four number 66, Adam Warlock has quite the extensive history when it comes to Marvel. Since its introduction, Adam has played a pivotal role in many of Marvel's biggest storylines and events, and he has been a member of the Infinity Watch and even possessed the Infinity Gauntlet for a time. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. We are talking about him and the Guardians of the Galaxy. But before we do that, let's talk powers. In terms of powers, Adam Warlock is very high on the cosmic scale. He has a standard set of superhuman qualities including strength, stamina, speed, agility, and durability. And then additionally, he has energy manipulation and absorption powers, is an expert in the use of magic, and can manipulate matter. He joined the Guardians for a while in Guardians of the Galaxy number 1 in 2008 alongside Star-Lord and the other members of the modern team. As a cosmic being of immense power, he's easily one of the most powerful members of the Guardians of the Galaxy to date. Now, if you're not familiar with him, check him out in his very first appearance in Fantastic Four number 66 as him, or skip ahead to 1972's Marvel Premiere number 1 to get just a little bit more of a backstory on him. Number 2. Angela. Interestingly enough, this character didn't start off as a Marvel character. Angela was originally created by Neil Gaiman and Todd McFarlane for Spawn, having first appeared in Spawn number 9 in 1993. She was first picked up by Marvel Comics for an introduction into the Marvel Universe in 2013's Age of Ultron crossover story, and was developed further in the original Sin storyline that took place in the following year. Her backstory was revamped to make her the long-lost daughter of Odin and Freya, making her Thor's older sister. Joining the Guardians of the Galaxy's roster in 2014's Guardians of the Galaxy number 9, Angela proved time and time again that that she truly was Thor's sister, as she is definitely comparable in terms of power. Angela has both the powers inherent to an Asgardian as well as those possessed by an angel of the 10th realm. These traits make her immortal, give her the ability to fly, and afford her superhuman strength, agility, stamina, speed, reflexes, and endurance. She is also a master of hand-to-hand combat and melee weapon combat, and has demonstrated these abilities in conflict against the likes of Spawn, Thor, and honestly so much more. That being said though, she does have just a little bit of an ego, and that can and has been her downfall just a few times. But all things considered, having a warrior as strong as Thor with a much darker edge on your team is a pretty huge asset. Check her out in her first appearance in the Marvel Universe in 2013's Age of Ultron, number 10. Number 1. Captain Marvel. Now I'm sure we all know who Carol Danvers is, especially in recent years since she has not only appeared in the MCU and the Avengers franchise, but also got her own solo movie. She first appeared in Marvel Superheroes number 13 in 1968, and from that first appearance she has evolved into a number of different character identities, including Ms. Marvel, Binary, Warbird, and Captain Marvel, which is the name she goes by now. If you're not familiar with her powers, let me give you a bit of a rundown. Now like most superheroes, she possesses super strength, stamina, agility, durability, and can fly. But that's not all, because she also possesses vast cosmic awareness, has a slight regenerative healing factor, and can manipulate energy to do pretty much anything she puts her mind to. What's even crazier is that like many of the other characters on this list today, it's also said that she has not shown the full potential of her powers either, meaning she can only get stronger from here, which I can't even fathom. She joined up with the Guardians of the Galaxy alongside Agent Venom in 2014's Guardians of the Galaxy Free Comic Book Day, and although her time with them was pretty short, she was a huge asset for the team. Now it was so short because she is a military gal, so she's sometimes classed with her laid-back attitude, and also because as a woman who's used to being the leader, she didn't really like playing second fiddle to Star-Lord. Nowadays, Carol sticks to hanging around Earth, but her tenure on the team gave the Guardians some serious firepower, to say the least. Check her out in her first appearance in 1968's Marvel Superheroes, number 13.
And at 10, Yotat. Yotat overheard two Brood half-breeds telling his boss that they allegedly killed the Collector and had stolen his weapons collection. Yotat used this information to uncover the weapons cache, and then attempted to trade them to another mob boss in exchange for a membership in his organization. But this mob boss named Diogo had other ideas. He betrayed Yotat, shooting him and then leaving for dead, and then blowing up the weapons depot with Yotat inside. However, somehow he survived the explosion and was actually transformed by it. And when the world was transformed into Battle World for the Secret Wars storyline, Yotat caught up with Diogo at the Sobolski bar on Nowhere. After killing the man who betrayed him, Yotat was confronted by Rocket Raccoon. Rocket attempted to execute him for what he viewed as a murder, only to see that his blast had no effect. Drax the Destroyer then rescued Rocket Raccoon by knocking Yotat unconscious, and then the Nova Corps arrived to take him into custody. However, later on he did defeat the Guardians after a few months, but this guy looks awesome too. Just look at it. It looks badass. And at 9, the Collector. Taneleer Tavan is one of the oldest living beings in the universe. His species at Cygnus X1 was one of the first to evolve after the Big Bang. Death took Tavan as the last surviving representative of his species and then gave him total immortality. Tavan, as well as one of the representatives of each of the first species in the universe, cannot die. These people have associated among themselves to create the Elders of the Universe. However, after his wife Matani died, he learned that one of the factors of his immortality was the will to live, and Matani had lost hers. Tavan then decided that he would not suffer the same fate and looked for a goal to dedicate his life to. He then had a vision, seeing powerful things that would rise, determined to destroy the universe. And he decided to prevent this from happening, and that he would dedicate his life to collecting artifacts and living beings throughout the universe and place them out of danger. Then, after the destruction of the universe, he could repopulate it and bequeath the knowledge of cultures from the past. So he became the Collector to continue being immortal, which is certainly an interesting origin story. And at 8, Ronan the Accuser. In the MCU, Ronan was a radical Kree warlord and former member of the Accusers. In 1995, during the Kree-Skrull War, Ronan worked with Yon-Rogg and the Star Force after the ambush in Torfa to wipe out the last of the Skrull refugees. Ronan and the Accusers were then called to drop warheads on Earth to wipe out the remaining Skrull opposition there, but was forced to retreat when Captain Marvel launched a counteroffensive against the Kree, promising retribution. You will get retribution. Further disgusted by the peace treaty made between the Kree Empire and Xandar, Ronan initiated a new campaign to eradicate the Xandarnians by forging an alliance with Thanos, offering the orb in exchange for the destruction of Xandar. After a long search, Ronan did acquire the orb, but after having seen its true destructive capabilities, betrayed Thanos and chose to take the orb's power for himself. Using this newfound power, he attacked Xandar, only to be defeated and killed by the Guardians of the Galaxy in an iconic dance battle. But honestly, with the power of an Infinity Stone, it's a wonder how he actually managed to lose. But that single stone still made him pretty damn powerful. And at 7, Jason. Jason was the only son of the previous Emperor of Spartax, and therefore their sole heir to the throne. He was summoned by his father when the war broke out between the Spartax and the Badoon, and on his way back home he was forced to crash land on Earth, where he fell in love with a human woman named Meredith Quill. The two began a short relationship before Jason was forced to leave to wage war for the Spartax. Meredith would later go on to give birth to his son, Peter Quill. Yeah, that's right, MCU fans. In the comics, Peter's dad is actually Emperor of Spartax and not Ego the Living Planet, which honestly makes more sense given that, you know, Ego is a whole ass planet. But years later, Jason joined the other members of the Galactic Council to declare Earth off limits to extraterrestrial interaction. Once his son defended Earth from a Badoon attack though, Jason sent Spartax soldiers to capture him and his team of Guardians of the Galaxy. However, the Guardians managed to escape and flee. And at 6, Thane. Thane is the secret Inhuman son of Thanos. After a descendant Inhuman tribe ran afoul of Thanos and his army, one Inhuman woman returned home pregnant with Thanos' child. I don't even want to know how that worked. The son of Thanos was convinced by Jason that the X-Men and the Guardians had committed such a massacre in an attempt to remove him from the conflict, thus giving Thane a reason to join his side. After reacquiring the Black Vortex, Thane submitted to it. This increased his power by 10-fold. Basically, the Black Vortex is like a mirror-like object that when you see your reflection, it shows you the ideal version of yourself and then turns you into that ideal version. So yeah, this dude's powers increased a lot, turning him into an incredibly powerful villain. As part of his deal with Mr. Knife, Thane then used his cosmically enhanced power to encase the entirety of Spartax in his amber construct. The trapped Spartax would later be traded to the Brood by Mr. Knife in exchange for it taking advantage of their expansion. A freaking cosmically enhanced son of Thanos? Yeah, that's pretty freaking powerful. That's nuts. Halfway through into number 5, Thanos. While usually portrayed as an evil bent villain, many stories have alternately depicted Thanos as having a twisted moral compass and thinking that his actions are actually justified. The character's perhaps best known role came in the 1991 storyline of the Infinity Gauntlet, the culmination of several previous story arcs, which saw him successfully assembling the 6 Infinity Gems into a single gauntlet and then using them to wipe out half the universe's population, including many of its heroes, in an effort to earn the affection of Mistress Death, the living embodiment of death in the Marvel Universe. Yeah, this dude wanted to get it on with death. Although these events were later undone, the storyline has remained one of the most popular published by Marvel, which was also later adapted into the MCU with the Infinity War and Endgame movies, which are the 2 highest grossing Marvel movies of all time, and the 2 highest grossing superhero movies of all time, which only serves to show the absolute power that the Mad Titan has over the Marvel Universe. Plus, he also managed to collect all the Infinity Gems and then wipe out half the universe just to get Lady Death on his dick. So I mean, he's pretty crazy. Or dare I say, mad. In at 4, Ego. In the MCU, Ego was a celestial, a primordial and powerful being, and the biological father of Peter Quill. A living planet with a humanoid extension of himself, Ego sought to find meaning in his life and, to achieve this end, planned to remake the entire universe via an omnidimensional extinction level event known as the Expansion, using seeds planted on various worlds to terraform them into new extensions of himself, thereby eradicating all other life in the universe but himself. You get it? This process required 2 Celestials, however, so Ego traveled across the universe, siring children on humanoid and alien planets everywhere in an attempt to produce a celestial heir, eventually having thousands of children. Have you seen the show Seed? Yeah, it's like that. Ego hired the Yondu Ravager clan to abduct and transport some of these offspring to his planet, though none of them showed signs of having inherited celestial DNA, so Ego killed them. However, when he learned of a man from Earth who held an Infinity Stone without dying, he knew this must be the celestial son he had with Meredith Quill. But I think the most impressive part about this character is that not only is he a celestial, but he is also the commander from Sky High, meaning that technically Peter Quill is Will's stronghold, and honestly, that's a theory I can get behind. Sky High is a good movie, you should watch it. If you haven't seen it, watch Sky High. Penultimately, in number 3, Zeus. Zeus is a member of the Olympians, a group of humanoid beings that hail from the pocket dimension of Olympus. He was worshipped by the humans of ancient Greece and the Roman Empire. He is supreme monarch of the Olympians, god of the heavens, sky, and weather, kinda like the 3 Doris Pokemon. from Gen 5, from Black and White, Thunderous, Landorus, and Tornadus? Yeah. Zeus was the youngest son of the Titan Kronos, who ruled Olympus and Rhea. The Titans were the offspring of the sky god Uranus and the primal earth goddess of Gaia. Kronos overthrew his father's rule by fatally wounding him, and then the dying Uranus prophesies that Kronos would be overthrown by his own children, which I guess is kinda poetic. As a result of this though, upon the birth of each of his own children, Kronos had them imprisoned in Tartarus, the most despicable section of the extra dimension known as Hades. Yeah, hell. However, appalled by the mistreatment of their children, Kronos' wife Rhea concealed their 6th pregnancy from him and secretly gave birth to Zeus, and then gave the infant Zeus to Gaia for safekeeping. I don't know why I need to explain how a literal god of Olympus is a powerful villain. Like, do I? Do I really need to do that? I don't think so. I should have just said Zeus and then moved on. Penultimately, in at number 2, Galactus. Galactus is the sole survivor of the 6th incarnation of the multiverse. Originally, Galactus was a humanoid named Galen, born in the previous incarnation of Earth 616 on planet Ta, a paradise-like world whose civilization is said to have the most advanced of any of the known universe at the time. However, the 6th Infinity and all its universes were in their final stages of collapse due to the multiversal renewal cycle, being consumed by the abstract entity known as the Black Winter. When the cosmos was going to meet its natural end, Galen was then approached by the embodiment of the 6th Infinity, the sentience of the multiverse basically, who merged its essence with the mortal Galen, this way giving birth to a new entity that would survive the multiversal renewal, Galactus, the Devourer of Worlds. However, the Black Winter also presented an alternate account of these events, saying that Galen's survival was it sparing him, and then turned him into Galactus to mark him as its herald. Galactus possesses the immeasurable power cosmic, and is one of the most powerful beings in the Marvel Universe, having near limitless godlike powers, and being considered an omnipotent entity. He's mega OP if he's eaten enough worlds. And that's kinda like me. I relate. And finally, in at number 1, Michael Korvac. Being first introduced in Giant Size Defenders number 3 in 1975, Michael Korvac's father was killed due to events surrounding his birth in 2977. He was raised by his mother, but when the solar system he lived on Earth 691 and its colonies became the target for the Brotherhood of Badoon, Michael became a traitor and helped the Brotherhood. However, after a few moments of hesitation, he was cut in half and fused with his computer by the Brotherhood, turning him into a cyborg of sorts. But this seemed to do more harm than good, at least for the Brotherhood, since now Korvac was dead set on killing those who did this to him. So, way to go. At least until the Grandmaster transported him to battle Doctor Strange and the Defenders. Korvac intentionally lost this battle and instead siphoned some of the Grandmaster's power using his new cybernetic abilities, making him even more powerful than before. Eventually, this guy ends up impersonating Kang the Conqueror and the Watcher, and with his ability to siphon power from others, this makes him one of the scariest villains in the Marvel Universe. At least if he was smart about it and didn't get himself killed. He ends up wiping himself out of existence, after killing basically all the Avengers and the Guardians though. It's freaking nuts, okay?
Number 10, Yondu. The Ravager Yondu that we know from the MCU, where he's played by Michael Rooker, is quite different from the one we know in the comics. Here, Yondu Udonta, the original Yondu anyways, was a native centurion of Centauri 4. He didn't have any powers, but did have his Yaka arrows and his bow. Yeah, in the comics he actually uses a bow to shoot them. Yaka arrows, like in the MCU, are unique in that they can change direction after fired, but only by those native to Centauri 4, who know how to basically use high-pitched whistles to direct and manipulate them once those arrows are fired. Similar to what we see in the MCU with Yondu, but, you know, a little bit different. Yondu on Earth 691 was one of the original members of the Guardians of the Galaxy, joining the team to fight back against the galactic oppression of the Badoon. Once that had been settled, Yondu basically traveled the galaxy with the Guardians, going on all sorts of adventures before retiring and settling down on Centauri 4. In the end, he would be called upon to travel back in time to prevent the ancestor he was named after from making a grave mistake. He became quite close to his ancestor, who of course is also named Yondu. Present Yondu also recklessly fought to protect his ancestor, dying in the process, but also oddly enough inspiring ancestor Yondu to become the historical hero that he was destined to be, and that inspired the naming of present Yondu. It's timey-wimey stuff. Number 9, Star Fox. Star Fox is cosmic, so I guess it kind of makes a little bit of sense when it comes to him joining the the Guardians team, but he's also often more associated with the Avengers, or with Thanos. Star Fox, or Eros, is the brother of Thanos, who is also technically an Eternal. Yeah, weirdly he's attached to a lot of different groups, actually. Both Eros and Thanos are technically part of the group of Eternals that are from Titan. You see, in the cosmos, Earth wasn't the only place where the Celestials manipulated native beings to create their own sub-race of beings known as the Eternals, which by the way is how it all goes down in the comics, although in the movies Eternals are more like kinda like robots, I guess, that were made by Celestials out in space and were simply brought to Earth to monitor, aid, and eventually harvest that planet. Star Fox joins the Dark Guardians team, actually founding it to stop Thanos from being resurrected after he's died. Initially this meant they actually had to hunt down Guardian of the Galaxy member Gamora, who they believed would be used in the resurrection ritual to bring Thanos back. However, it turned out that it was Star Fox that was wanted for that ritual, not Gamora, prompting Gamora to kill her adopted uncle as she too wanted to prevent Thanos' return. Number 8. Groot. Groot is definitely one of the weirdest characters on paper when it comes to the Guardians. He is a sentient alien tree who is known to only speak the words "I am Groot," though often with various different meanings of course behind those 3 words. In the comics, Groot is from Planet X, where there exist other Flora Colossi like him. However, Groot here was known for being an outcast who cared more about the maintenance mammals of that planet than his own tree brethren. As a result of choosing the maintenance mammals over the other Flora Colossi, Groot was exiled from his planet and so set out to explore space, eventually joining the Guardians of the Galaxy. In the first, now retconned comic book appearance of Groot, he was actually a villain, although Tales to Astonish issue number 13 is no longer considered his first appearance. It's been established that the Groot that actually appears there was, I guess, also named Groot, but like another Flora Colossi, so yeah. But initially that's what he was. He was a monster from Planet X, oh no. It's okay, he's not a monster. We love Groot, right? Number 7. Major Victory. Major Victory is also known as Vance Astro, or Major Astro. While he has a counterpart on the Earth 616 reality who is known as Justice, the Vance Astro of Earth 691 from the original Guardians team actually existed before his main continuity counterpart, so he could actually be considered more the original version of that character than even the main continuity version of that character. Vance Astro was a member of the US Air Force who ended up becoming an astronaut. One of the first astronauts to be shot into space. He was sent up in suspended animation, but by the time he arrived at his destination over 1,000 years later, it turned out others on the planet had basically beaten him to colonizing it. Ah, shucks, don't you hate when that happens? Still, Major Vance Astro set out to record the planet's flora and fauna, as was also part of his mission, one of the parts that he could still obviously complete. He'd run into Yondu, fighting him initially, but later befriending him, and then the two would come together to form part of the original roster of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Major Victory has psionic powers that are actually mutant in origin. He also has a striking look with his suit, which also apparently protects him from rapidly aging. Yeah, if he ever takes his suit off, he's just like, ah! Aging. Number 6. Baby Groot. I mean, I love Baby Groot, but he's also one of the oddest members of the Guardians team. Obviously, this version of Groot was designed with merchandise for the franchise in mind, as Baby Groot is by far like the cutest member of the team and one of the cutest things that has ever existed, I think, on planet Earth. But even Baby Groot is still Groot, and it should also be noted that while adorable, he also just straight up murders a lot of people by growing right through them. Kinda makes him even more awesome, and definitely more weird that he's so little but also so deadly. Baby Groot only existed in the MCU for a short time, appearing in volume 2 of Guardians of the Galaxy before growing into teenage Groot. Comic book versions of the pint-sized Groot also appeared in the 2017 series I Am Groot and in the Reality of Earth 415, aka the Future Fight universe. Possibly there are even more comic book versions of Baby Groot, but these are the only ones that I know of, so if you know about more versions of him, just put them in the comments and we can all read all the versions of Baby Groot. Number 5. Angela. Angela is a weird but ultimately very cool character. She has had a long history when it comes to comics that actually started even before she showed up in Marvel. Initially, she started out in Spawn, where she was an enemy of Spawn due to her being an angelic Hellspawn slayer. However, Neil Gaiman fought for the rights to his work on Spawn and basically ended up as such winning back the rights to Angela. He then sold that character to Marvel Comics, and she ended up making both appearances in Gaiman's own Marvel alternate Earth of 1602 as well as the main continuity where she was basically established as Thor's lost sister. In a weird turn of events, Angela now has an established history with the Guardians of the Galaxy team, being considered an ally, friend, and at one point even a member. They accompanied her on her first trip to Earth, she helped them fight against Iron Man during Civil War II, they helped her to get her demonic baby sister, who also of course is Thor's baby sister, to the safety of heaven, and at one point also fought to free her when she was in prison. So yeah, they have this weird long relationship that I'm like so here for. Kind of random, but also Angela is also quite cosmic, so I guess not so random, because everyone that's from Asgard is both like magical and cosmic when you think about it. Best of both worlds. Number 4, Drax. Even though he's considered one of the most famous members now, especially thanks to the success of the Guardians team via the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Drax is still a super weird character. Even more so in the comics. Let me explain. His backstory is that he was actually a human living on Earth who was a musician. He was traveling back from a performance one night with his family in tow who had come to watch him perform when they ended up being attacked by Thanos. Kinda like a wrong place, wrong time deal here. Thanos in his ship just kinda happened to show up near the lone road that they were driving down in the desert. Not wanting anyone to see him, he attacked and seemingly killed the family, except he didn't really kill them because some of them survived. The father, Arthur Douglas, who we now know as Drax, and daughter, Heather Douglas, were both saved by Thanos' father, Mentor, who felt bad for basically what his son had done and was like kinda keeping tabs on him at the time. He attempted to make amends by giving them new life, with Heather traveling to Titan where she was raised and would become the hero Moondragon, and Arthur's spirit being saved and put into a new body which had superpowers, becoming known as Drax the Destroyer. So he no longer really looks like Arthur Douglas at all, but technically he has Arthur's spirit. Number 3, Ant-Man. Ant-Man is just a kinda random pick for the Guardians of the Galaxy team, but we love Ant-Man, so I'm fine with him being a member in the end. I just love Scott Lang, he's such a fun guy. For the purpose of this list, by the way, when I do say Ant-Man, I am talking about Scott Lang, not Hank Pym or the infamous Eric O'Grady. Scott Lang ends up joining the all-new, all-different Guardians of the Galaxy team, which I will say has quite a lineup when it comes to the members and allies of the team. This kinda seems like a pretty cool book, actually. I haven't read All New, All Different, but I feel like now I need to after doing some research on it for this list. Ant-Man actually ends up on the team after stowing away on their ship because he wanted to leave planet Earth. The Guardians find him out, but basically respond to his stowaway attempt by simply inviting Lang to join the team. Number 2, Rocket. Rocket is somehow even more weird of a character in the comics as well in comparison to the MCU, which like, Rocket is a really weird character, so how can it get weirder? Let me tell you about it. Although even by the MCU standard of Guardians, he's probably one of the weirdest team members. Rocket Raccoon looks exactly like a Terra-based or Earth raccoon, but claims not to be. When it comes to the MCU, we mainly know that he is a victim of intense experimentation, having been, and I quote, torn apart and put back together over and over and turned into some little monster. It is believed that Rocket had his intelligence greatly improved and as such was made sentient. However, due to the traumatic nature of the experimentation, Rocket also seemingly developed a chaotic personality. In the comics, Rocket is actually a hero from another planet, where he and other animals were experimented on and given sentience by robots. The robots had been charged with looking after basically mentally unwell humanoid aliens that lived there indefinitely and wanted to escape this indefinite task, giving the animals on the planet intelligence so that they could basically replace the robots, who then could basically just peace and go build their own world and home on the far side of the same planet. Rocket was one of these animals. Toys were also essential to keeping the patients on the planet calm and in good spirits. And the patients on this planet, by the way, are referred to as loonies, which pretty problematic, but anyways, we'll just keep going on and pretend that didn't happen. But civil unrest between the animals would eventually lead to an all-out toy war between animal-run toy production tycoons and companies. Number 1, Agent Venom. Not necessarily a weird character, just someone who feels pretty weird on this team, especially considering how his involvement with the team kinda all went down. Agent Venom is Flash Thompson. A specific identity for Flash, Agent Venom was the name Spider-Man bully turned ally Flash Thompson took when he merged with the Venom symbiote. I guess Venom is pretty cosmic, so sure, but Flash certainly is not cosmic. He's very like street level as a person. Or at least he wasn't cosmic prior to this, prior to him joining the Guardians. Flash joined the team and went along for a ride to Clintar, where the Venom symbiote reconnected with the Hive and basically was purified. And outside of that storyline, he really didn't do too much while on the Guardians team, which is kind of a waste of a character who is as powerful as Agent Venom. And then I'm pretty sure after that he was like, I'm gonna travel space and like be a knight. And yeah, it's a weird time. Number 10, Yondu. Yondu's only showing up on such a low spot on this list because I'm considering this point like kind of a mashup of all three versions. Some are more powerful, some are less. We have the original Yondu of Earth 691, the new Yondu of Earth 616, and of course the MCU Yondu. All are pretty cool characters, but the MCU one is by far the most powerful. It's kind of a combination of all of them too, though, in my mind. Yondu in the MCU is depicted as being a Ravager who has a specialized fin that with his whistling allows him to control his Yaka arrow. In the newest version from the comics from Earth 616, Yondu was exiled from his tribe and ended up deciding to abandon his home world of Century 4, becoming a space explorer and a looter. On the Earth of 691, Yondu has no powers and is simply a skilled fighter and gifted sort of mystical empath who ends up returning to his home world after serving as an original Guardians of the Galaxy member to raise a family. Number 9, Kitty Pryde. A favorite guest star of mine on the Guardians team is Kitty Pryde, who even stood in as their replacement Star-Lord for a while when Quill was off trying to basically be a ruler of Spartax. Kitty got roped into being on the team when she began a long-distance relationship with Quill. For a time, the pair were even engaged. Kitty joined the team and became Star-Lord after she had received a power boost from the Black Vortex. It was because of this power boost that Kitty was able to save Spartax, phasing it out of an amber encasing. When Quill became ruler of Spartax, this created tension between the pair, as Quill became more and more busy and had less and less time for his and Kitty's relationship. This led Kitty to feel more and more alone, and because of this, she would throw herself more and more into her hero work with the Guardians, and would eventually take up Quill's abandoned mantle of Star-Lord, which I think Quill was also kind of jealous of. Like, he was like, why did you take my mantle? Number 8, Groot. When it comes to strength, Groot is likely one of the most powerful Guardians to ever have been a member. He hails from Planet X, a Flora Colossi who did not get along with the other members of his race and ended up being kicked off the planet, causing him to wander the galaxy. Poor Groot. Groot, previous to joining the team, had already befriended and fought alongside Rocket Raccoon and Star-Lord, so it was a relatively easy transition for him to join the Guardians of the Galaxy team, because prior to that he was already basically doing that stuff. Number 7, Nova. Nova has been an on and off again member of the team for some time. The Nova we're talking about today, of course, is Richard Rider. He grew up on Earth and was randomly chosen to become a member of the Nova Corps when he was still a teenager. He has had many adventures with the Guardians of the Galaxy and is currently on the roster in the latest series, volume number 6 from 2020. Nova is immensely powerful across the board. Super strong, super durable, super fast. He can heal, emit energy blasts by channeling the Nova Force, and through his connection with the World Mind, has access to a vast knowledge of Xandarian knowledge, making him super smart as well. Number 6, Cosmo. Cosmo is everyone's favorite psionic space dog, and he's no lightweight when it comes to power levels either. You may recognize this goodest boy from the MCU, where he appeared as an exhibit in the Collector's expansive collection. In the comics, Cosmo joined the Guardians as a supporting character and ally for space adventures way back as early as volume 2 of the series from 2008, kind of the reboot of the Guardians of the Galaxy, if you will. When dealing with the Cancerverse, he proved how formidable of a hero he was when he swiftly took out a bunch of Cancerverse alternate heroes with one single psionic command. Boom. Number 5, Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel is likely one of the most powerful cosmic heroes that we have out there, and also for a time ran with the Guardians of the Galaxy. This happened after one of the many times that Carol had lost her memories, or more in this case, I guess, like, lost the emotional attachment to her memories. It's kind of weird. She was still seen as kind of remembering who people were, but remembering something important to her and her love of her friends was a little bit more tricky. She didn't really have that emotional connection to people or to her memories. In order to save New York, she was forced to fly high up into the sky, and because she had a tumor in her brain and was told specifically not to fly as she risked dying at the time, she suffered brain damage that affected her memory. In order to learn more about who she truly was inside, she decided to leave Earth for a time and venture among the stars, eventually joining up with the Guardians of the Galaxy. You can check out Carol's cool space adventures and watch her flying high with the Guardians in the 2014 Captain Marvel series volume number 8, starting in issue 2. Also, for anyone that wants to come at me about how many Captain Marvel series there have been and blame Carol for that, look, Carol didn't even come in until I think about halfway through all of those, so just a heads up. People in the comments always want to come after Carol. I love Carol, so I'm gonna fight for her. Civil War II was not her fault. It was just weird writing, guys. It wasn't really her. Number 4, Starhawk. Starhawk is one of the members of the original Guardians of the Galaxy roster, before they reached mega fame status in the comic book world. But just because some of the older members aren't as well known, doesn't mean they don't deserve to be celebrated or respected. Some of them are evidently very, very powerful. Starhawk is one such Guardian, although not my favorite of the oldest original team members. We still don't even fully know the limits of Starhawk's power, but what we do know is that he has a multiversal knowledge that grants him great insight. He was basically living the same life cycle and using that knowledge way before Moira McTaggart made it cool. It is because of this that he knows so much about the world around him, giving him sort of a precognitive sense. Starhawk is also super strong, super fast, and immortal. Number 3, Thor. Yep, when Thor joined the team in the MCU, he even made reference to another version of the Guardians of the Galaxy roster referred to as the Asgardians of the Galaxy. This is what Thor jokingly refers to the team as in the film, but it's actually also the name of a separate team from the comics. There's a real Asgardians of the Galaxy comic. It's got like a totally different team pretty much, but you should check it out. We don't know in the MCU if Thor will end up staying on as a permanent member of the Guardians, but sometimes the strongest members to this team are the ones that come and go. Thor is one of the most powerful heroes in the Marvel Universe, definitely in the MCU as well. He even attempted to go toe-to-toe with Null during the King in Black event recently, and impressively held his own, even managing to get a hit in where he smashed off Null's jaw. I was like, what just happened? That fight was crazy. We also got to see Storm and Thor team up. Ugh, so good. Number 2, Star-Lord. Star-Lord typically isn't known for being the most powerful member of the Guardians of the Galaxy, despite the fact that he is one of the most recognizable members thanks to the films and recent comics, and is generally the leader of the team, or is generally depicted as being the leader of the team. However, recently he's got a major power upgrade. While thought dead, it turned out that he had survived the fight against the Olympians and the explosion that had been thought to have killed him. Instead, he was transported to another dimension and another world entirely. There, his element gun seemed to have an everlasting power source, something that would be useful on his return. For Quill, almost 200 years had passed, though of course, probably in part thanks to his Spartax heritage, he looked as though he had barely aged upon his return. Also, you know, maybe time moves differently in another dimension. There's a lot of good explanations for that. His element gun was used to defeat one of Null's symbiote dragons, and he also managed to withstand a mental assault from Null, who tried to drag him and the Guardians into the darkness. Number 1, Adam Warlock. Obviously, Adam Warlock had to make the top of this list. He's one of the most powerful characters in the Marvel Universe, and even though we haven't seen him for a while, he's still out there, lurking, with lots of power still to boot, even, you know, without the Soul Stone. Adam Warlock has been capable in the past of manipulating the very fabric of reality. He's been on a god level before. I mean, he still kinda is. When we saw the new Guardians team in the comics, Adam Warlock joined up with them to defeat Ultron, and then ultimately ended up joining the team. Together they set out on a great task to repair the universe. That sounds like a lot of work. Number 10, Rocket Raccoon. I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't put Rocket on here, especially after Volume 3. Rocket Raccoon isn't quite as impressive as his Marvel Cinematic Universe counterpart, but he's still up there for me. And honestly, I feel like his intelligence is higher than what his Marvel fandom wiki says. They have him at like a 3, but I think even in the comics, he's actually worthy of a higher number than 3. He's deserving of, I would say, at least a 5 myself. I will say though that in the MCU, he is much more of a super genius than he is in the comics, and I mean, that's also why I love MCU Rocket too. But still, in the comics, he is known for being quite capable when it comes to building and understanding space tech and weaponry, in addition to being an impressive pilot who can fly just about any spaceship he comes across. What I think is most impressive when it comes to Rocket though, is the fact that he actually becomes a leader of the Guardians of the Galaxy team, proving his capabilities as both a strategist and a team leader. Rocket takes over when Star-Lord steps down after some other responsibilities responsibilities caused him to step away from the team for a bit of time. Number 9. Cosmo. If there is anything that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 has taught me, it is that all the Guardians are, in their own way, extremely powerful. Cosmo included. Cosmo was a Russian space dog who was sent up to outer space as part of a Soviet space program. In the films, Cosmo is a female dog, and in the comics, Cosmo is a male dog, so I'm gonna be kinda using lots of pronouns here, but both versions are much more powerful than you might expect. In the comics, it is thanks to cosmic radiation that he gained his telekinetic and telepathic powers. A little warning here to skip ahead to the next point at this time if you want to avoid some minor spoilers for Guardians Volume 3. In the latest and final Guardians film in James Gunn's trilogy, Cosmo demonstrates how truly powerful she is when we see her use telekinetic powers to hold an entire massive spaceship in place. Not only is Cosmo a good dog, but she's also one of the most powerful dogs as well. I gotta say, I was wowed. Number 8. Moondragon. I'm still broken up about Moondragon being left out when it comes to the MCU Guardians team, but I'm hopeful that one day we may still get to meet her at some point, somewhere in the cinematic universe, and that she's still somewhere out there for us to find. I was really hoping for Drax's sake that we'd get a family reunion with the two of them, but I guess that's not happening right now. Moondragon, for those who are unfamiliar, was once Heather Douglas, the daughter of the man who would become Drax the Destroyer. In the comics, both of them were from Earth and were actually nearly killed when Thanos appeared there. Mentor, Thanos' father, felt bad for the damage his son had wrought and attempted to basically revive the family. While Heather's mother was not able to be saved, both her father, Arthur, and she herself were. Heather was reborn as Moondragon and was raised on Titan from that day on by the Shaolin monks. As Moondragon, she has powerful psionic abilities, and she could even turn herself into a giant space dragon. I don't know if we've seen her do that for a while, but it might still be a thing she can do, so watch out. Number 7. Star-Lord. While Star-Lord might often get downplayed as actually being one of the weakest members by comparison, at the end of the day, this simply is not true, especially when we're talking about comics, friends. Sure, he might seem like he's just a guy, and to be fair, he kind of is. In the comics, he's not even descended from the godlike planet Ego. Instead, his father is the alien Spartax Emperor Jason. Still pretty impressive, but doesn't grant him any godlike powers. He just kinda gets a boost to his stats because he's half Spartax, half Terran. Longer lifespan, enhanced durability, and a better healing factor than he normally would have. So why do I think Peter Quill is still OP? Because at one point, his royal heritage, once revealed, actually allowed him to inherit the throne, although he also kinda like won it over. I think there was a vote and he won, allowing him to become king of Spartax for a time, which you know is pretty powerful, like ruling a whole world and a whole group of people. And he also recently traveled to another world or dimension where he actually did gain godlike powers that he could harness through his element gun. At one point, he uses this newfound power once returning to Earth 616 to blow up a giant symbiote dragon. And I don't know if that other world that he went to was actually in 616. I'm a little foggy on that, so if it was, sorry about that, me missing that part. While the Guardians at the time were needed elsewhere, imagine if Quill had actually been around on Earth during the King in Black event. If he had actually like fought that dragon and like, I guess we gotta go to Earth, he would have been pretty useful, I imagine, in the fight against Null had he been free. I mean, he blew up an entire symbiote dragon. That's not easy to do. Number 6. Mantis. While she is definitely used in films as more of a support character, the newest film has me convinced that Mantis is actually one of the most powerful Guardians around. Although to be honest, I kind of felt that way about her since I first got to know her and her abilities in GOTG Volume 2. Since then, I've also learned a ton about her character in the comics, and I have to say, Mantis has an interesting and somewhat bizarre history. She is not only a member of the Guardians, but she was also once an Avenger mainstay as well for a time. In fact, did you know that when Vision and Scarlet Witch were married, Mantis was also married to another Avenger team member? Swordsman! Or rather, a version of Swordsman who after dying had his mind and body possessed by a Kotati, bringing him somewhat back to life, so he's kind of like a plant version of Swordsman. That was a double wedding issue. That was a thing that happened, guys. The two couples got married together side by side at the same time. But, you know, I feel like Vision and Scarlet Witch overshadowed them. They took their thunder away. Mantis was also identified as the Celestial Madonna, who was meant to be the mother to an extremely powerful cosmic being who would bring about great change in the universe. And she did do that with Koya, who is also, of course, part Kotati, because his dad is Kotati Swordsman. Comics are weird sometimes, especially when we talk about cosmic things. gets weird really quickly. Number 5. Kate Pryde. Y'all know me, I'm a big Kate Pryde fan. Kitty for a while was weirdly the romantic partner of Star-Lord, which to me was weird, but I'm sure some people are super here for it. And even for a time, she was engaged to Peter. They met in space while Kitty was on an X-Men mission and started off as friends who eventually dated long distance because, you know, Peter Quill's out in space and Kitty's on Earth. Kate came to space for a time, initially venturing there to rescue Star-Lord. This was also right around the time that Kitty got a temporary but insane power boost from the artifact known as the Black Vortex, and used her mutant phasing powers to phase all of the planet of Spartax out of an amber encasing to save the planet from the Brood. When Quill was pulled from the team to act as the King of Spartax, she actually took over for him in his role as Star-Lord, joining the team. Although Peter wasn't a big fan of her choice to do so, but she did it anyways, so it definitely happened, and it counts. Number 4. Thor. I didn't mean to make those rhyme, but it just happened that way. When we're talking about Thor here, we're talking about MCU Thor for this point, because our main continuity comic book Thor of Earth 616 has not explicitly joined up with the Guardians of the Galaxy, sadly. Although in that world, the Asgardians of the Galaxy are still a thing, but kind of their own thing, and Thor wasn't a member of that team. Although, I think he still worked with them at one point, but he wasn't on the team. I don't think so. Still, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Thor definitely did team up with and temporarily join the Guardians team, as was seen in Thor Love and Thunder. When it comes to the comic book version or the cinematic version of the character, Thor is one of the strongest around and is literally at god tier because, well, he's a god, so there you go. Number 3. Wiccan. Definitely one of the strongest people on this list when it comes to his abilities, I gotta say. And possessing the potential, honestly, to be maybe one of the most powerful characters in the Marvel multiverse. Billy Kaplan, Soul-wise, is the reborn son of Scarlet Witch, and a powerful magic user like his magical mom. Wiccan not only looks super cool and has the ability to will things into being just by speaking them into reality, but he also usually comes with his amazing partner and husband in tow, Hulkling. Hulkling is now also the Emperor of the Alliance, the combination of both the Kree Empire and the Skrull Empire smack dab together. Likewise, Hulkling was also a member of the Guardians and also honestly deserves his own spot on this list, but there were simply too many powerhouses for me to choose from, so fingers crossed I get to talk about him more on a part 2 because there's a lot of other people that I didn't mention here and I want to mention that. So please share this video so I can do that. Number 2. Adam Warlock. Although the newly born Adam Warlock might not pack as much of a punch in the Marvel Cinematic Universe as he does in the comics, even there he's still a force to be reckoned with, I'd say. And that's with him just being born and having his incubation period somewhat cut short. In the comics, Adam Warlock has been alive at this point for considerably longer and is considered to be one of the wisest folks in the universe, or even multiverse at this point, at least a version of him is. Not only has he been a member of the Guardians team, but there's also an alternate version of him who actually became the cosmically powerful and multiversal Living Tribunal, an entity that works to uphold a sense of balance between universes and worlds within the multiverse. The supreme justice, if you will, within Marvel's multiverse. Number 1. Nova. Over the years, Nova has proven himself to be one of the most powerful members of the Guardians of the Galaxy team as well, also taking over as leader for a time. Nova has been the last standing member of the Nova Corps twice over, and has even, despite it being an impossibility according to the World Mind, contained and mastered the entire collective power of the Nova Corps within himself. With this insane level of power at his fingertips, it's actually been implied that Richard Rider is as powerful as half of a fully charged cosmic cube, which puts him, honestly, on a whole other level, because cosmic cubes are crazy.
Number 10. Flash Gordon. Dun 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 dun. Flash! Savior of the universe! Well, Alex Raymond created Flash Gordon in 1934 solely to compete with another futuristic space hero, Buck Rogers. The character set itself apart as Flash's adventures took him farther and farther into the strange worlds and locations of space. The handsome polo-playing Earthling was transported to an alien world dealing with the rule of a horrible evil ruler, Ming the Merciless. Flash became a hero to the world of Mongo, fighting alongside characters like Prince Vultan of the Hawkmen and Prince Baron, the displaced ruler of Mongo, to overthrow the villainous Ming. In the 1950s, Flash became an astronaut who traveled to other planets besides Mongo. Using starships that can travel faster than light, the long story of the Scorpio War takes Flash to other star systems. Flash and friends also fought a bunch of other villains, including Azura, the Witch Queen, Brucka, chieftain of the Giants of Phrygia, the Red Sword organization on Earth, and Brazor, the tyrannical usurper of Tropica. His story and adventures only carry on with other writers and into that really campy but awesome movie. Number 9. Green Lantern. Though many characters have held the title of Green Lantern, none is as iconic as Hal Jordan. Hal was a test pilot who found a dying alien, Abin Sur, in the wreckage of a crashed spaceship who was a member of the Green Lantern Corps, an intergalactic police force that wielded strange power rings. In his dying moments, Abin Sur passed his ring on to Hal Jordan, drafting him into the Corps and granting him the power to create anything his mind could envision, so long as he remained totally honest and completely fearless. Although Hal Jordan's assigned sector of the universe includes Earth, it also includes about 33 other planets, all of which need his and his other Green Lanterns' help. And that's not including the whole rest of the universe, which also falls under the care of the Green Lantern Corps as a whole. Hal Jordan has had many ups and downs as a character, even at one time betraying the Green Lantern Corps and eventually giving his life to redeem himself. Don't you worry, he eventually returned to life in Jeff Johns' landmark miniseries Green Lantern Rebirth, which I highly recommend you read. Number 8. Captain Marvel. An alien warrior named Mar-Vell, whose adventures eventually brought him to Earth and into the path of the Avengers, was the individual who would first go by the name Captain Marvel in Marvel Comics. Wielding a pair of energy-wielding negabands, and with the ever-useful cosmic awareness, Mar-Vell found himself voyaging through strange worlds in an iconic example of the way out superhero space stories taking place at Marvel Comics in the 70s. Though Mar-Vell passed away due to cancer in the early 1980s, the Captain Marvel name did not. Monica Rambeau was the second person to hold the title in the comics after Mar-Vell. Monica's powers are truly extraordinary. She can transform herself into any form of energy on the electromagnetic spectrum, such as light or X-rays. She can also use that energy to fly through space at the speed of light, generate energy beams, become intangible, and more. She was even powerful enough to stop the symbiote god Null during his first invasion. The most recent holder of the Captain Marvel title, however, would be Carol Danvers. She began her career as Miss Marvel in 1977's Miss Marvel #1 after meeting Mar-Vell in 1968's Marvel Superheroes #13, and he exposed her to the energies that transformed her into a human Kree hybrid. And her powers have evolved significantly since her debut. She can generate energy blasts of varying scope as well as absorb energy attacks that are extremely volatile. Captain Marvel is also generally invulnerable to magic and, in the recent comics, is even exploring using magic herself, making her even more powerful. Number 7. Martian Manhunter. Though many people don't realize it, John Johns, the Manhunter from Mars, is one of DC Comics' most powerful superheroes. This quiet and humble Martian, in addition to possessing all of the many powers that Kryptonians also share, is also a shapeshifter who can morph his body however he wishes and is one of the DC Universe's most powerful telepaths. He can turn invisible, effortlessly phase through solid objects, or make his fists as hard as a diamond as he punches someone in the face, nearly as hard as Superman can. He was a law enforcement officer on Mars before he became a detective on Earth when he was marooned here, but being an alien, he is intrinsically tied to the wider galaxy and has many adventures that go out into the stars. But like many cosmic superheroes, he has a quiet, reserved personality which, when you learn just how incredibly powerful he is, it makes you just respect him that much more. Number 6. Silver Surfer. Silver Surfer has a pretty iconic internal fight. The constant struggle between responsibility and morality in a universe where evil is often more necessary than good. Sorry, I read that quote while I was making this video and gosh, it's just so good. The surfer was originally Norrin Rad, an astronomer from the planet Zen La. When Rad discovered that Galactus, the devourer of worlds, had come to devour Zen La's life force, Rad struck a deal with the cosmic entity to seek out uninhabited planets that Galactus could consume. Eventually, Galactus became aware of Earth and set out to make it his next meal. The surfer arrived just in time to warn the Fantastic Four of Galactus' arrival, which was what initiated his initial reveal into the universe of Marvel in Fantastic Four number 48 to 50, and started a great relationship between the surfer and the superhero family. The Silver Surfer's adventures often center on philosophical conundrums as much as physical challenges, and Stan Lee has used the surfer as a vessel to express some of the writer's own worldviews. As for his powers, he is in possession of the power cosmic, which granted him both power projection and absorption, as well as a degree of matter manipulation and even soul manipulation, among many other abilities. Number 5. Superman. Superman often finds himself exploring the far-flung reaches of other galaxies as well as defending Earth, and specifically his city of Metropolis. Stories frequently find the superhero in locations ranging from the region of space where his birth planet Krypton once orbited, which, fun fact, according to Neil deGrasse Tyson, is in the Corvus constellation near red dwarf LHS 2520. In case you wanted to know that, I don't know. 2 planets like New Genesis and Apocalypse, the twin home of the New Gods. Stories have seen him holding black holes with his hands, moving solar systems, punching death, and he broke Highfather's staff out of the Source Wall, which is the barrier between us and the unifying force of the universe. Which my puny brain cannot really even comprehend what that means, so we're just gonna carry on. Okay. Number 4. Orion of the New Gods. Orion is a new god and the son of Darkseid, and as a hero with a dark ancestry, he is quite the conflicted do-gooder. He has many forms and he has many abilities. He exists beyond the normal multiverse on a higher plane called the Sphere of the Gods. Born on Apocalypse but adopted by the New Gods of New Genesis, Orion is in a constant war with his inner darkness and with his father Darkseid. Orion is repeatedly praised and stated to be a warrior with skill and ferocity second to none. While undercover on Apocalypse, he was the greatest warrior and would have slaughtered the entire army during training, quote unquote. He has held open the hand of the god of strength and might, who is threatening creation and ripping holes in reality with his strength. He stands against and fights a sun-amped Superman one-on-one, something no one else in the Justice League was able to do. And he can tank star system destroying explosions, so there's that. Orion moves with the speed of thought. His intelligence was enough that he created the Genesis box, which can destroy and rebuild a universe. He can grow to any size, move through time, has a healing factor, super senses, and wields the Astro Force, which does a hell of a lot on top of everything, but as an example, it once sealed holes in reality and knocked out Superman in a single shot. And that's all just Orion holding back and not using his true power called the Source of the Beast. But I think we can all agree Orion is the beast here. Number 3. Adam Warlock. Adam Warlock is one of the most powerful cosmic characters, maybe not just in Marvel Comics. He was the keeper of the Soul Gem, and beyond the powers that comes with, which allowed him to pass back and forth into the Soul World, he is immortal, able to regenerate himself and gain new powers using a cocoon, and can manipulate matter and energy on a cosmic scale. Warlock was created by a group of researchers who called themselves the Enclave. Their goal was to create the perfect human being, the pinnacle of future human evolution. The creature they had created emerged and immediately sensed that something was not quite poppin' with his creators. They wanted to use him for evil, so he escaped and became Space Jesus in the Marvel Universe, and there is no other appropriate title for him. I don't care what you say. He has destroyed and rebuilt reality, is the avatar of life, and has even become the living tribunal, otherwise known as the Judge of the Universe. Number 2. Divinity from Valiant Comics. Abram Adams, otherwise known as Divinity, is an incredibly powerful godlike hero who appears in Valiant Comics. He's a lot like Watchmen's Dr. Manhattan, who may be coming up later, I don't know. His power is so great that he is basically a god. Knowing full well the impact his actions could have, he doesn't really involve himself in human level issues, letting us instead learn from the mistakes we naturally make, which we rarely seem to do. Abram came into his power after joining joining the army of the Soviet Union and taking on a 30-year-long mission into deep space. Abrams and his partners came upon a planet at the end of the galaxy, or beyond, called the Unknown. After removing his helmet, Abram Adams breathed in the air of the unknown and was changed. The powers bestowed upon divinity are as such: chronokinesis, which is the ability to manipulate time, forced evolution and de-evolution, energy manipulation, molecular manipulation, reality warping, flight, solar flare and heat vision, telepathy. He has super senses, can survive in space and other vacuums, not vacuum cleaners, but I'm sure he'd do fine inside one of those too. And in case you haven't guessed it, he is also immortal. I think of all the heroes on this list, divinity is easily one of the most powerful. But no, number one. Number 1, Dr. Manhattan. After he was destroyed and reconstituted from the atomic experiment gone wrong, John Osterman, also known as Dr. Manhattan, has no need for food, sleep, or oxygen and no longer ages. He has nigh omniscience and possesses an understanding of the workings of the universe on a cosmic scale, which puts him comfortably in this list. But more than that, he has reality warping and matter manipulation powers, allowing him to end literally everything if he wants to, which he foresaw himself doing, so he obviously has precognition even as far as a millennium into the future, and he can even see alternate possible futures. He has causality and time manipulation, which allowed him to return the metaverse to how it was before the interference and remove 10 years from the universe's timeline, creating the New 52 in DC Comics. In a crazy show of power, John experiences all the reboots in DC continuity, and yet he remains unaffected, and additionally, John exists in every timeline all at once, meaning that he has duplication and dimensional travel abilities as well. He possesses elemental manipulation, creating a ring of blue fire, producing an oxygen field, creating water, and producing electricity. He can phase through things, create human life, make plants grow. He has instantly analyzed and learned magic after being attacked with it, and absorbed energy from a Green Lantern ring, and even absorbed magical attacks. Dr. Manhattan is basically a cosmic god, so number 1.
And at number 10, Gamora is really dead. In Infinity War, we got to learn a lot more about the history between Thanos and his adoptive daughter Gamora. In order to obtain the Soul Stone on Vormir, Thanos had to sacrifice or disrespectful to Drax's ways. That's definitely one way to take a deeper look into that adorable post-credit scene from the first Guardians film, isn't it? Dancing Groot. Moving on to number 7, Earth's music. Another theory found on Reddit, this one crafted up by user Kodoro, dives further into why music is such a key part of the Guardians movies. So, for starters, it's undeniable that both of the Guardians of the Galaxy films, Volume 1 and 2, have phenomenal soundtracks. Second, we know how much music means to Peter Quill since his mixtape was the last gift from his mother, and really his only connection to her while out in the galaxy. But that music also resonates with many other individuals in the galaxy who come across it throughout the movies. All the other Guardians like the music. Groot dances to the tracks multiple times. The prison guard in the first film takes Peter's Walkman and tries to steal it altogether, and so on. So what's the big deal, other than his tunes are really good? Well, this theory speculates that Earth's taste in music is actually incredibly advanced compared to other races out there, with many others having more of a primitive rhythm to their music compared to the kinds of artists that Peter has on his mixtapes. And at number 6, Nova's introduction. James Gunn had leaked a little while back that Marvel Studios were considering introducing superhero Nova into the fray, but that he wasn't planning on introducing the character into the Guardians movies. Now, we've already seen the Nova Corps in the Guardians films, but don't be mistaken, Gunn was discussing the character Nova, who is a member of the Corps as an intergalactic police officer. Nova was first introduced in the comics in 1976, created by Marv Wolfman and John Romita Sr. years before, but officially became Nova in a comic called The Man Called Nova. He was intended to be an homage to Stan Lee and Steve Ditko's Spider-Man, but in space. There are a few theories concerning how Nova will be integrated, or whether now that Gunn is out, if he'll even be considered as part of the MCU. But perhaps the most interesting theory is that Thanos' actions in Infinity War are the catalyst to Nova's MCU introduction. The theory suggests that the Nova Corps and Xandar were likely wiped out by Thanos, considering he got his hands on the Power Stone that they had put under their care at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. Now consider the plotline of A Man Called Nova. Xandar is destroyed by a villain who claims to be Thanos' child, and one Nova soldier manages to escape to Earth. That soldier is Roman Day, who already exists in the MCU, and is played by John C. Reilly. Roman finds a high school student who ends up becoming his predecessor, a kid named Richard Rider, who then becomes Nova. So it would make sense for the story to be adapted into the MCU, since its setup wouldn't be too difficult. The question is, now that James Gunn is out of the picture, would Marvel Studios prefer to follow the Nova Corps storyline in the Guardians movies and reveal this new hero there, perhaps setting up his character as one of the future Guardians of the Galaxies that will be replacing the current iteration? So many questions, but I mean, totally plausible. Moving on to number 5, Rocket and NASA. Now there's been a lot of speculation as to Rocket's origin story. Now in our last list, part 1, we broke down a theory that suggested Thanos was responsible for making Rocket, considering he and Nebula have kind of similar stories when it comes to biomodifications and robotics. Now we know Rocket was cybernetically engineered, hence why he's so highly intelligent. We also know he was tortured while being transformed into what he is today, which is why he's really sensitive. Now this theory diverts from the Thanos one, and speculates that the source of Rocket's engineering is much closer to home. From Redditor Atoreg, the theory suggests that Rocket is actually a NASA experiment gone wrong, and that he was shot into space as an ordinary raccoon. Space trash panda. And from there, ended up somewhere along the lines of Sakaar, which is where he was experimented on by a number of curious individuals, perhaps by one of the Grandmaster's crew. This also serves as an explanation as to why he growled back at Cosmo the space dog, who was Russian, and was also shot up into space. The two may have previously crossed paths when they were both shot up into space during the Cold War. And at number 4, Eternity. This theory, another one to pop out of Reddit by user ZooBoy42, is based on a line that is spoken in Guardians Volume 2, when Ego taps Peter on the head to show him the universe. Peter, in response, then says, "I see it, eternity." The Redditor suggests that rather than this being a throwaway line, or Peter trying his best to describe what he sees, perhaps he's actually referring to the celestial entity, Eternity, which could slowly be laying down the groundwork for the Celestials to be introduced in the upcoming MCU films. There's already a whole lot of speculation that Doctor Strange will be interacting with the Living Tribunal in the upcoming 4th Avengers movie, so it would not be a shocker if the Celestials will become much more present in the MCU overall, and Eternity could easily make And at number 2, Thor joins the team. After the events of Infinity War and pretty much the loss of almost every Asgardian left alive, many a fan has wondered if Thor, after the 4th Avengers movie, will retire from being an Avenger and perhaps become a Guardian instead. Now we know that the 3rd Guardians film will be the last iteration of the current Guardians team, but we don't know whether that means if some of its current members will still stay on the team. Fans have speculated because of the bond that Rocket, Groot, and Thor established in Infinity War, Thor may be inclined to join up with them and adventure around the galaxy if Cap dies, if Tony retires, and if Hulk does, well, something that hopefully involves better CGI than Mark Ruffalo in the Hulkbuster suit. Just saying. In a theory posted by Redditor Callie0, the theory suggests that since Thor has lost his people, his culture, and likely the other Avengers, if he survives the upcoming Avengers movie, he's gonna be pretty aimless. Except that we've seen how awesome Thor's adventures are in space thanks to Thor Ragnarok. And Chris Hemsworth was also a big fan of how great Ragnarok turned out. So Thor could very well end up joining with Nova, Rocket, and Groot and be a part of the next version of the team. Who knows? I mean, hey, it'd be a really interesting team if that happened. And finally, and at number 1, the timeline. Due to the deaths that occurred in Infinity War, specifically Gamora's, some fans have speculated that Volume 3 will take place prior to the events of Infinity War. Back when James Gunn was set to direct the 3rd installment of the series, he had revealed that Volume 3 would be the last time that we saw the current iteration of the Guardians altogether. The Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 occurred 4 years before the events of Infinity War, and the upcoming Captain Marvel film is set to take place in the 90s, so we know that the MCU isn't a stranger to time jumps, or having their film timelines occur in a non-linear fashion. It could make perfect sense, and it could be emotionally much more impactful if we get to see Gamora one last time, knowing that she's now deceased. Talk about painful. Plus, if Adam Warlock is introduced, and there is a whole adventure in the Soul World, perhaps, maybe we'll end up seeing him and Gamora get together, which is what happens in the comics, so maybe it won't be the end of Gamora after all, but it might be the end of her tenure on the Guardians team.